Hello and welcome. Today is Thursday, April 16th, and it would be a B day if we were still in school. For today's video, I want to cover something incredibly important given how many people are working from home and the fact that so many students have to engage in distance learning. And that's the concept of digital media literacy. And under that umbrella, I'm going to cover a couple of different things. Some of it, a lot of it really, are things that I covered way back at the beginning of this school year, but I think are important to review for my students. And if you weren't a student of mine, I think it's really important for you to know. And honestly, adults as well need to start to understand some of this material because, again, with that huge push for distance learning and working from home, we're really opening ourselves up to some bad players out there. So let's just dive right into it. Everybody's online right now, right? And if you pay attention to the news, you've heard a lot of stuff about, all of these different apps to make teleconferencing or video conferencing happen. One of the biggest ones that's been in the news is Zoom. And if you've followed any of that, you've heard about the bad things that have happened with that, right? People being able to hack into it and hijack Zoom meetings. But there's more to think about than things like that. And in reality, that's like the least of our problems because the internet is this great open area with unfiltered access to information, which is wonderful, right? Now more than ever, so many people have access to information, but it also has a lot of dangers. And if you don't have the ability to think critically about the information that you have access to, you can really be led astray and quite frankly, be harmed by some of the information out there. So we have to understand some basics when it comes to digital media, right? And the first thing that's important, and just to dispel it, just because it's published on the internet doesn't make it true. And that seems obvious on the surface, but you'd be surprised at how many people read something online and then just assume, well, somebody published it, therefore it can't be fake. And of course, that's the farthest thing from the truth. There is a ton of information out there on the web that is just flat out false. Now, some of it exists as parody and, as a joke, but a lot of it is out there to deceive and to basically hurt people, right? There are a lot of people who take advantage of the internet's, lack of real regulation and rules to provide disinformation, to provide false information. So we have to look at things carefully, right? We have to check some basic things and apply some basic critical thinking skills. So when we see a website, we should always look at what appears after the dot in the web address, right? So we're familiar with .com, that's the most common, right? Which typically can be thought of as commercial, C-O-M, commercial. A website designed to provide money or profit. And, that covers a wide gamut of websites. You can get everything from like news organizations like CNN or Fox News or, the Washington Post and so forth, to things like, car companies' websites. But it can also cover websites for organizations that, want to put out a message and so forth. So anything that's a .com, you have to understand that their typical goal is to make money. And you should always remember that, right? That's an important thing to understand. Now, a lot of times when students in particular start doing research online, they think of .org, .org, and they think, okay, it's not a .com, it's a .org, it's probably more reliable. And it's not. A .org is simply something that is an organization that has decided that it's not for profit, all right? That can cover anything. And in fact, an example I've used in my classes before was a website that was set up as a, supposed biography of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And the website was something along the lines of realmartinlutherkingjr.org. And on the surface, anybody who went to it would look at it and think, okay, this is a valid website. I can go to it. It's not a .com, it's a .org. That seems reliable. And on the surface page, the front page, it seemed okay. It wasn't until you started clicking links that you started to see really crazy, outlandish information. And you'd have to dig into it to find out that the owners of that website was actually Stormfront, this neo-Nazi white supremacist group. And they had created it, again, to provide disinformation and to lead people astray. So .org doesn't make it valid or reliable. It's just an organization that is, not for profit. So you have to be careful of that. .edu. Now, .edu is set up for post-secondary institutions, colleges and universities. That tends to be a fairly reliable source of information. There's some caveats there, right? Some things we have to think about. Sometimes when you look at a website and you just do a search on Google and you get a .edu site, it can be a piece of work written by a student at that college that was published on the college's server. So we have to be careful sometimes when we look at anything from a .edu as well. And we have to, again, read it over and apply some basic critical thinking skills. Look for whoever published the article or the author of the article, because there have been instances where people have done just a random Google search, saw something with an edu, and assumed that the material they were reading was fact-checked and valid, when in reality, it was a paper written by a freshman at a college who hadn't really done a lot of research. Those are the three basic ones that a lot of students come across. How do you get to those sites? How do you try to circumvent finding stuff? Well, that's where you have to use Google search operators, right? And, again, most people, when they want to search something, they go to Google, they type it in, and they hit search, and, they click on whatever the first hit is. Most people don't even go past the first page of hits on a search. They don't understand that, companies can pay to have their website come up higher on the search rankings and so forth, that Google is just using an algorithm, and that, based on like where you're doing a search from, the type of computer you're using, the area, all these different factors, Google will change what you get as a search result. They don't take that into consideration. So because of that, the better way to search things is to use Google search operators. And what that is basically just a command that you type in before your topic that you want to search that tells Google to just strip away all those algorithms and just search for specific things. And the most basic and useful one for students is to type in site, S-I-T-E, a colon, the two dots, and then whatever type of domain you want to search through. So you can literally type in site:/edu, and then a space and whatever your topic is. And what that will do is limit Google to only searching through edu sites. It'll only search through colleges and universities for what your topic is, which can be incredibly helpful for you. But you can go farther than that. You can make it very specific, right? So you can search for it through a very specific site. You can do site:/harvard.edu space and then your topic. So it'll only search through Harvard University's specific information. Let's say you want to do something on history and you want some really great, well-checked sources for American history. Well, we have a great source for that, the Library of Congress. You could do site:/loc.gov, and gov is for government websites only, and then your topic. And you will only get results back for the Library of Congress. And it's a great way to limit you from finding random weird things, because we really have to be careful. There's a lot of stuff out there, especially now when we're in this situation with the pandemic, where people want to take even more advantage of it and try to prey upon everyone. And just be careful. Use that common sense. Use those critical thinking skills, right? Be aware of that. Always check, use the old sniff test. If you start noticing typos on a website, it's probably a bad sign. If you start getting weird pop-ups, don't click on them. By all means, don't click on pop-ups. 9 times out of 10, it's probably not good. So be aware of that. If you're on a website you've never been to before and it looks like it might not be the best source, be careful, right? If you check your website and you log into it and you see things that look different, make sure you've typed the address incorrectly. There are a lot of people who will register websites that are one letter off a well-known website with the idea that somebody will be in a rush, type in a website, misspell it, but not realize they've done that, right? And these people have set up fake websites like that as a way to defraud or scam people. So you got to be careful for that. I'm going to include somewhere in the comments a list of other Google search operators that are very important to understand. I'm also going to include a link to probably one of the most important videos to understand right now, which is by Eli Parser. He did a video called Filter Bubbles, which I think you really need to watch to really understand just how important it is when you start searching for things, the different factors that happen behind the scenes and how it could impact the results you get. Because again, with so many of us online and having to do things like distance learning, we have to be aware of the different forces that are at play behind the scenes. Until next time, I hope everyone's well. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, please let me know. Either leave a comment in the video or reach out to me through email. Hope everyone's well. Bye.